Hello! Welcome back to another evening of shared stories and adventures. Tonight we're diving deep into the wild world of Stranger Things theories ahead of the final season. I'll be covering all the theories I can fit in for tonight, but there's definitely more to come. So we'll start with some stuff like the frozen upside down mystery and Will Byers' potential hidden powers. Then we'll move on to the Eddie Munson vampire theory, Max's mind prison situation, and the time travel speculation that's been making the rounds. We'll also get into who fans think might not survive, Eleven's possible fate, and a bunch of other theories that range from surprisingly plausible to absolutely unhinged. Plenty to get talking about, but if you like what I do here and want a way to support the channel, consider subscribing down below. But for now, grab your Eggo waffles and a flashlight, get cozy on the couch, and let's begin. Before we dive into the wilder theories, we need to talk about one of the biggest mysteries that Season 4 dropped on us. And honestly, it's the foundation for a lot of what fans think is coming in the finale. In Episode 7 of Season 4, Nancy, Steve, Eddie, and Robin travel through the Watergate, which is what Dustin named the portal in Lover's Lake. They end up in the upside-down version of the Wheeler house, and Nancy suggests they grab her stash of weapons. Except when they get there, her guns aren't where she left them. At first, this seems like just a logistical problem, but then Nancy starts investigating. She finds her diary, and it should be full of entries from the past few years. It's not. The last entry is dated November 6th, 1983. That's the day Will Byers went missing. That's the day 11 first made contact with the Demogorgon and accidentally ripped open the gate at Hawkins' lab. The Upside Down isn't running parallel to our world, like everyone assumed. It's frozen in time. This is such a massive reveal, and I think a lot of people kind of glossed over it because Season 4 had so much going on. But the Duffer Brothers have confirmed that this mystery is central to Season 5. In an interview, Ross Duffer said that the frozen timeline is really the key question that's going to drive the final season as they try to wrap up the story. So whatever the answer is, it's going to be important. Now here's where it gets interesting. When 11 banished Henry Creel to the Upside Down back in 1979, the dimension looked completely different. It was this volcanic, chaotic wasteland with floating rocks and lightning storms. It didn't look anything like Hawkins. But by 1983, it had transformed into a perfect dark mirror of the town, complete with all the same buildings and streets, just covered in vines and spores and general creepiness. So why 1983 and not 1979? That's the 4-year gap that fans have been obsessing over. One theory is that Eleven's moment of contact with the Demogorgon didn't just open a gate, it somehow triggered the transformation. Chris Trujillo, the show's production designer, actually confirmed in a featurette that the Upside Down is frozen at the moment it was quote-unquote created by 11. He mentioned that when they dress sets for the Upside Down, everything has to match how it looked in Season 1, not the current timeline. But there's another theory that puts Will Byers at the centre of this whole thing. Some fans believe that Will didn't just stumble into the Upside Down, he shaped it. The idea is that when Will was hiding from the Demogorgon, his fear and his connection to Hawkins somehow imprinted onto the dimension, turning it into the dark version of his hometown that we've seen ever since. It would explain why the Upside Down is frozen on the exact day he was taken, and why Vecna seems so obsessed with him specifically. I honestly hadn't realised how much this single date connects everything until I started looking into it. November 6th, 1983 isn't just a random detail, it's the hinge that the entire show swings on. Whatever the answer turns out to be, the Duffer Brothers have made it clear we're getting one. And it's probably going to change how we understand everything that's happened since Season 1. But the frozen timeline isn't the only mystery about the Upside Down that fans have been obsessing over. There's also the question of what the dimension actually is and where it came from in the first place. For the first 3 seasons, most viewers assumed the Upside Down was just this dark mirror dimension that had always existed parallel to our world. 11 accidentally punched a hole through to it, and monsters started coming through. Simple enough. But Season 4 complicated things significantly. When 11 banished Henry Creel in 1979, she didn't send him to the Upside Down, as we know it. She sent him to something else entirely. The concept art calls it Dimension X. It was this volcanic, primordial wasteland with red lightning storms and floating rocks. There were creatures there, including demogorgons, but it didn't look anything like Hawkins. It was alien and ancient and completely empty of human civilization. So somewhere between 1979 and 1983, something changed. The dimension transformed from that chaotic wasteland into a perfect dark copy of Hawkins, Indiana. And fans have some pretty wild theories about how and why that happened. One idea is that Vecna built it. During those 4 years in Dimension X, he wasn't just sitting around. He was busy, as he told Nancy. He discovered the particle cloud that would become the Mind Flayer and shaped it into a hive mind he could control. The theory suggests he also used his powers to construct the upside-down version of Hawkins, essentially building a giant trap designed to ensnare the real world. He modelled it on the town because that's where his enemies were. That's where 11 lived. It was always meant to be a staging ground for invasion. Another theory puts the high, idle responsibility on 11 herself. When she made psychic contact with the Demogorgon and ripped open the Mother Gate, the explosion of power might have done more than just create a doorway. It might have reshaped the entire dimension. Her mind, focused on Hawkins in that moment of terror, could have imprinted onto the Upside Down like a photograph burning onto film. The dimension became what she was thinking about because her power made it so. And then there's the will theory, which I touched on earlier, but deserves more exploration. Some fans believe Will Byers has a unique ability that nobody fully understands yet. When he was pulled into the Upside Down, his presence caused the dimension to mirror his hometown. His fear, his longing for home, his desperate desire to be back with his family somehow shaped reality around him. It would explain why the Upside Down is frozen on the exact moment he arrived and why Vecna is so interested in him. Will didn't just survive the Upside Down, he accidentally created the version of it that we've seen ever since. The truth is probably some combination of all these ideas. Stranger Things loves layered explanations where multiple factors contribute to a single outcome. But whatever the answer is, the Duffer Brothers have promised we're getting one in Season 5. The Upside Down's origin isn't going to remain a mystery forever. There's also the matter of the Mind Flayer, which has always been one of the more confusing elements of the show's mythology. For a while, the Mind Flayer seemed like the ultimate big bad. It was this massive shadow creature that possessed Will in Season 2 and built an army of flayed humans in Season 3. It felt ancient and powerful and genuinely terrifying. But then Season 4 revealed that Vecna created it. He took a swirling mass of particles and shaped them into a weapon he could control. The Mind Flayer wasn't the mastermind. It was a tool. This raised a lot of questions that fans are still debating. If Vecna made the Mind Flayer, does that mean the Mind Flayer has no independent will? Is it just an extension of Vecna's consciousness, or does it have some autonomy? Could the Mind Flayer potentially turn against its creator, the way Cass turned against Vecna in D&D lore? Some theories suggest the Mind Flayer existed before Vecna arrived in Dimension X. The particles were already there, swirling around, waiting to be shaped. Vecna just gave them form and purpose, but that means the raw material for the Mind Flayer predates humanity entirely. It's something cosmic and ancient that Vecna harnessed but didn't truly create. Other fans think the Mind Flayer might still have a role to play in the finale. If Vecna is weakened or destroyed, the hive mind might fracture. All those connected creatures, the Demogorgons and Demodogs and Demobats, might go rogue. Or alternatively, someone else might try to take control of the hive mind. Will has a residual connection to it. So does Max. Potentially, either of them could theoretically become the new controller, for better or worse. I honestly think there's more to the Mind Flayer than we've seen. The show spent 2 full seasons building it up as this incomprehensible cosmic horror. Reducing it to just a puppet Vecna controls feels like it's missing something. Season 5 might reveal there's a deeper layer to the Upside Down's power structure that even Vecna doesn't fully understand. But talking about Will specifically, there's a lot more to unpack about his connection to the Upside Down. Will Byers has been at the centre of this whole thing since the very first episode. He's the boy who vanished, the boy who survived the Upside Down, the boy who got possessed by the Mind Flayer. And yet, for most of the series, he's kind of been pushed to the background, while everyone else gets their hero moments. But fans think that's about to change in a really big way. The theory that's been gaining traction is that Will has latent supernatural powers that we haven't seen yet, and when you start looking at the evidence, it's actually pretty compelling. Let's go back to Season 1. Will spends an entire week in the Upside Down, hiding from the Demogorgon, communicating with his mum through flickering lights, and somehow surviving in a dimension that should have killed him. Barb didn't last nearly as long. Neither did most of Vecna's victims in Season 4. So why was Will different? The show has never really explained how an 11-year-old kid managed to evade a monster for that long in hostile territory. After he came back, Will developed what fans have called true sight. He can sense when something from the Upside Down is nearby. His neck tingles when the Mind Flayer or Vecna is active. He felt the gate opening in Season 4 before anyone else knew what was happening. The show treats this as a leftover side effect from his possession, but some fans think it's something more. They think it's evidence that Will has actual psychic abilities. Here's where it gets really interesting. In the stage play Stranger Things, The First Shadow, we learn that Henry Creel was taken to the Upside Down as a child back in 1959. After he returned, he started showing signs of supernatural abilities. His time in the alternate dimension literally changed him. Sound familiar? Will also spent time in the Upside Down as a child, and according to this theory, his exposure might have done the same thing. Fun fact, episode 4 of Season 5 is titled Sorcerer. In fantasy lore, a sorcerer is someone who doesn't learn magic through practice or training. They're either born with powers or transformed by a life-changing event. If that episode does centre around Will, which a lot of fans suspect it does, then the title might be telling us exactly what's happening. There's also a wild theory that Will has a soteria chip implanted in his neck, just like Henry Creel did. This would explain why his powers have been suppressed all this time and why he always touches his neck when he senses Vecna. It's the same spot where Henry's chip was located. Now, this one's a bit more speculative, but I think it's an interesting idea. And then there's the Dungeons and Dragons connection. In the very first episode of the entire series, Mike, Will, Dustin and Lucas are finishing up a campaign. They face a Demogorgon, and Will's friends encourage him to cast a fireball spell to defeat it. But they never find out if it worked because Mike's mum sends everyone home. It's played as a fun cliffhanger for their game, but fans have noticed something. Stranger Things loves using D&D as foreshadowing. The Demogorgon, the Mind Flayer, Vecna, all of these names came from the kids applying D&D concepts to real threats. So what if Will's fireball is foreshadowing too? The Season 5 trailer ends with a shot of Vecna holding back a massive wall of fire. Some fans think this isn't just any fire. They think it's Will finally unleashing the power he's had all along. It would bring the story full circle, back to that first D&D game, back to the moment before everything went wrong. Noah Schnapp, who plays Will, has said in interviews that the show began with Will and will end with Will. That's a pretty significant statement. It suggests his character isn't just going to be along for the ride in the finale. He's going to be essential to it. The Season 5 opening scene, which Netflix released early, shows Vecna addressing Will directly as William during his time in the Upside Down back in 1983. This suggests Vecna has known about Will from the very beginning and possibly targeted him on purpose. The question is why? If Will is just a regular kid, why would Vecna care so much about him? But if Will has powers that Vecna needs or fears, suddenly everything makes a lot more sense. I think there's definitely something bigger planned for Will this season. Whether it's actual supernatural abilities or just a deeper connection to the Upside Down's destruction, his story is finally going to get the spotlight it deserves. While we're talking about character arcs, I want to spend some time on a few other people whose fates fans are theorising about. Hopper and Joyce have had one of the most compelling slow burn romances in recent television. They've known each other since high school, reconnected over the trauma of losing children, and have been dancing around their feelings for 4 seasons now. Season 4 finally got them together in the most Stranger Things way possible, with Joyce travelling to a Russian prison to rescue Hopper from a Soviet gulag. Nothing says romance like fighting a Demogorgon in Siberia. Heading into Season 5, fans are split on whether they'll get a happy ending. The optimistic view is that Hopper and Joyce will survive the finale and finally get to build a life together. They've both suffered enough. They've both lost so much. The show owes them some peace. The pessimistic view is that one of them dies, probably Hopper, in a heroic sacrifice to protect the kids. He's already had one fake-out death. A real one would carry enormous weight. There's also the question of what happens to their family unit. Hopper adopted 11. Joyce has Will and Jonathan. If they all survive, they're basically a blended family now. Some fans love this idea and want to see them living together in the epilogue, finally safe and happy. Others think the show might go darker, leaving one or more of them grieving. David Harbour has talked about Hopper's arc in interviews, describing him as a man who found purpose again after losing everything. His journey from suicidal grief in Season 1 to reluctant hero to surrogate father has been beautiful to watch. If he does die, it needs to mean something. It needs to be a choice he makes for the people he loves, not just random tragedy. And then there's Robin, who's become one of the show's most beloved characters since her introduction in Season 3. She started as Steve's co-worker at Scoops Ahoy and quickly became his best friend after their shared trauma in the Russian base. Her coming out scene with Steve remains one of the show's most touching moments. Robin's arc in Season 4 focused on her crush on Vicky, which was adorable and awkward and very relatable. Fans are hoping Season 5 gives them more screen time together. The show has been pretty good about LGBTQ representation, and having Robin get an actual relationship would be meaningful. Some theories suggest Robin might play a crucial role in the finale beyond just comic relief, possibly using her intelligence and linguistic skills to decode something important about the Upside Down. Lucas has been somewhat overlooked in fan theories, which is strange because his emotional stakes are incredibly high. Max is in a coma. His girlfriend might never wake up, and even if she does, she might not be the same person. Caleb McLaughlin has talked about Lucas's guilt and desperation in Season 5, watching over Max in the hospital while feeling powerless to help her. Some fans think Lucas will be the one to reach Max somehow. Their connection might transcend the psychic barriers that are keeping her trapped. Music saved her once before. Maybe Lucas playing her favourite song, or reading to her, or just being present will be what pulls her back. It would be a beautiful payoff to their relationship arc. There's also Dustin, who's been the emotional heart of the group in many ways. He lost Eddie in Season 4, and that grief is going to carry into the finale. The leaked photos showing him with bat tattoos suggest he's honouring Eddie's memory, but he's probably also angry. Eddie died a hero, and the town still thinks he was a murderer. Dustin might make clearing Eddie's name a personal mission. Gaten Matarazzo has consistently delivered some of the show's most emotional performances. His reaction to Eddie's death was devastating. If Steve also dies in Season 5, I genuinely don't know how Dustin handles it. Losing 2 older brother figures in back-to-back seasons would break him. Some fans think this is exactly what the Duffers are planning, forcing Dustin to grow up in the most painful way possible. Speaking of characters who might return in unexpected ways, let's talk about one of the most elaborate fan theories to come out of this fandom. Eddie Munson absolutely stole the show in season 4. He was this metalhead outcast running the Hellfire Club at Hawkins High, and within a few episodes, he'd become one of the most beloved characters the series has ever introduced, which made his death at the end of the season so much more painful. He sacrificed himself to the Demobats, dying in Dustin's arms, while the rest of Hawkins still thought he was a murderer. It was devastating. But according to a very detailed fan theory, Eddie's story might not be over. The theory connects Eddie to a character from actual Dungeons & Dragons lore named Kaz the Bloody-Handed. And once you start seeing the parallels, it's kind of hard to unsee them. In D&D canon, Kaz was Vecna's most loyal lieutenant. He served the Dark Lord for years before eventually betraying him in an epic confrontation. The twist is that Kaz wasn't always a monster. He was turned into a vampire after being attacked by bats. After his transformation, he became bound to Vecna's service until he finally broke free and turned against his master. Sound familiar? Eddie was killed by a swarm of demobats. His body was left behind in the Upside Down, in a dimension saturated with dark energy. And according to this theory, those bat bites didn't just kill him, they transformed him. The idea is that Eddie could return in season 5 as an undead servant of Vecna, only to eventually betray him, just like Cass did in the original D&D story. What makes this theory so compelling is the amount of foreshadowing that fans have identified. Eddie has a tattoo of bats on his forearm. He has another tattoo that looks like a puppet master, which connects to his iconic performance of Master of Puppets. He even has a black widow spider on his chest, which some fans interpret as a reference to Vecna's web-like tendrils. These could all be coincidences, or they could be deliberate hints planted by the writers. Then there's the shield. During the final battle in Season 4, Eddie and Dustin make these spiked metal shields to defend themselves. It's a small detail, but fans have pointed out that Cass in D&D lore was known for wielding a spiked shield. The show makes a specific point of showing Eddie crafting and using his shield. It feels like more than just a random prop choice. The first episode of Season 5 is titled The Crawl. Some fans think this is a reference to the Metallica song Eddie played during his sacrifice. The lyrics go, "Come crawling faster, obey your master." If Eddie has been resurrected as Vecna's puppet, that line takes on a whole new meaning. He'd be crawling back to his master, at least until he breaks free. Now I should mention that the Duffer Brothers have technically denied Eddie's return. In an interview with Empire, they said he's fully dead and that Joseph Quinn has been too busy filming other projects to come back. Matt Duffer even joked that everyone should know he's not coming back because he's shot like 5 movies since Season 4. But here's the thing, the Duffers also told us Hopper was dead at the end of Season 3. They let us mourn him for years before revealing he'd survived. So their denials don't carry quite as much weight as they used to. The Season 5 trailer has a moment at around the 2-minute mark where Vecna appears to be fighting someone powerful. The figure isn't clearly visible, but fans have been analysing it frame by frame. Some think it looks like a confrontation with a significant enemy, possibly someone who was once on Vecna's side. If the Cars theory is true, this could be the moment Eddie turns against his former master. There's also the matter of Dustin's tribute. Photos from Season 5 have leaked, showing an older Dustin with bat tattoos on his arm. It's clearly a memorial to Eddie, which is heartbreaking on its own. But some fans think it might also be a hint that Eddie's connection to those bats isn't finished yet. I love that the fandom has put this much thought into keeping Eddie alive, at least in theory. Whether he actually returns or not, the Cars theory shows how much that character meant to people. Joseph Quinn created something really special in just 9 episodes. What's interesting is that Cars isn't the only D&D character fans have connected to the show. Some people think Will could be a version of Cass since he was also controlled by Vecna through the Mind Flayer. Others have suggested that Eleven herself fulfills the Cass role because she was essentially Vecna's right hand at Hawkins' lab before banishing him. But Eddie's connection feels the most direct. He's got the bat death, the tattoos, the shield, and the lyrical foreshadowing all lined up. Even if Eddie doesn't come back as a literal vampire, the theory raises an interesting possibility. Vecna consumes his victims. He takes their memories, their abilities, their essence. Eddie's body is still in the upside down. There's nothing stopping Vecna from using that corpse somehow, even if Eddie's consciousness is gone. It might not be a triumphant return, but it would still bring the character back into the story. I don't know if any of this will actually happen, but I think it would be a pretty cool way to honour Eddie's sacrifice, while also giving him one last heroic moment. Since we're talking about D&D connections, there are actually quite a few more parallels fans have identified between the game and the show's mythology. The Demogorgon, which kicked everything off in Season 1, is named after a demon prince in D&D. In the game, Demogorgon is one of the most powerful creatures in the Abyss, with two heads that constantly war with each other. The show's version is obviously different, more animal than demon, but the naming convention established early on that the kids would use D&D as their framework for understanding the supernatural. The Mind Flayer is another direct lift from D&D. In the game, Mind Flayers are also called illithids. They're these tentacle-faced creatures that feed on brains and use psychic powers to control other beings. They operate through a hive mind connected to an elder brain. Sound familiar? The show's Mind Flayer is basically a cosmic scale version of the same concept, a psychic entity that controls lesser creatures through mental domination. Vecna, of course, is the most on-the-nose reference. In D&D, Vecna is a lich, an undead sorcerer who achieved immortality through dark magic. He's missing an eye and a hand, which were cut off during his battle with Kays. The show's Vecna doesn't have those specific injuries yet, but some fans think that's foreshadowing. Maybe the finale involves Eleven or someone else taking Vecna's eye and hand, mirroring the original legend. There are other D&D monsters that haven't appeared yet but might show up in Season 5. Fans have speculated about beholders, which are floating orbs covered in eyes that shoot magical rays. They've theorised about dragons, which would certainly raise the stakes. The show has generally kept its creatures within a certain biological framework. More Lovecraftian horror than high fantasy, but the finale could go bigger. The D&D episode titles have also been analysed extensively. Season 5's episodes are reportedly called The Crawl, The Vanishing, The Turnbow Trap, Sorcerer, Shock Jock, Escape from Camazotz, The Bridge, and The Right Side Up. Each of these has spawned its own theories. The Vanishing could refer to a character disappearing, possibly Holly Wheeler, based on some fan speculation. The Turnbow Trap sounds like someone getting caught in an ambush. Sorcerer almost certainly focuses on Will and his potential powers. Shock Jock might involve the radio station where Steve and Robin work, which could be used to communicate warnings or play music to save people. Escape from Camazotz is interesting because Camazotz is a bat god from Mayan mythology, which could connect to the Demobats or Eddie's potential return. The Bridge suggests a connection between worlds, maybe the final confrontation. And The Right Side Up is a pretty clear indication that the finale involves restoring balance between dimensions. I love how deeply the writers have woven D&D into the show's DNA. It's not just set dressing, it's actually foreshadowing and thematic framework all at once. Now let's talk about another character whose fate has been uncertain since the Season 4 finale. Max Mayfield had one of the most emotionally brutal arcs in Season 4. She started the season grieving Billy, drowning in guilt over his death, and barely holding herself together. And then Vecna targeted her, she became his victim, and even though she managed to escape his grasp the first time, thanks to running up that hill, the second encounter didn't go nearly as well. By the end of Season 4, Max is in rough shape. Her bones are broken, she's blind, and she's lying in a hospital bed in what doctors describe as a brain-dead state. Eleven managed to restart her heart using her powers, But when she tried to enter Max's mind to find her, she found nothing. Just an empty void. Max's body is alive, but her consciousness is gone. So where is she? According to one of the most popular theories, Max is trapped inside Vecna's mind, and the evidence for this comes from Vecna himself. Earlier in Season 4, when he's confronting 11, he talks about the children from Hawkins' lab, the ones he killed. He says they aren't gone. They're still with him, right here, and he taps the side of his head. Vecna doesn't just kill his victims, he consumes them. He takes their memories, their abilities, everything they are. Dr. Brenner confirmed this when he warned 11 about how dangerous one truly is. If that's how Vecna operates, then Max's consciousness could be stored inside him right now. She's not brain dead in the traditional sense. She's imprisoned in the mind of the monster who attacked her. It would explain why 11 couldn't find her. She was looking in the wrong place. This theory opens up some really interesting possibilities for Season 5. If Max is trapped in Vecna's mind, she might have access to his memories, his weaknesses, maybe even his powers. Some fans think Max could become a kind of spy, gathering information from the inside while her friends fight from the outside. Others think she might be able to use Vecna as a power source, drawing on his abilities long enough to help 11 during the final confrontation. There's also the fact that Sadie Sink, who plays Max, was reportedly paid millions for Season 5. That's a lot of money to pay someone who's just going to lie in a hospital bed for 8 episodes. The Duffer Brothers even commented on this, saying Sadie Sink is too good not to keep, which strongly suggests Max is going to do a lot more than stay comatose. A report from Time magazine mentioned that Max remains in her coma until around the midway point of Season 5. Scenes were filmed showing Lucas and Robin visiting her in the hospital, and she's still bedridden in those shots. But that also means something happens to wake her up eventually. The question is what triggers it and what condition she's in when she comes back. Some fans think Max might return with abilities of her own. She's the only person who's ever escaped Vecna's curse, and the only one who's been partially claimed by him. That half-killed, half-saved state is unique. It's never happened to any of his other victims. Whatever connection was formed between them during those attacks might have changed her in ways the show hasn't revealed yet. One theory suggests she'll become a kind of seer, able to perceive the upside down and Vecna's movements from afar. Another proposes that 11 accidentally transferred some of her own power to Max when she restarted her heart. Either way, fans are expecting Max to play a crucial role in the finale, not just as someone who needs rescuing, but as someone who actively helps bring Vecna down. I also have to mention the Kate Bush thing. Running Up That Hill became a massive global hit again because of Max's storyline. It charted in dozens of countries and introduced an entire generation to Kate Bush's music. That kind of cultural moment doesn't happen by accident, and the writers clearly put a lot of thought into Max's arc. It would be strange to build her up that much only to sideline her in the final season. Whatever happens, Max's fate is one of the biggest emotional stakes heading into the finale. She's already lost so much. Her friends are desperate to save her, and if she really is trapped inside Vecna, then rescuing her might be the key to destroying him once and for all. Let's talk about music for a minute, because it's become one of the most important elements of the show's mythology. Running Up That Hill saving Max in Season 4 was one of the most memorable moments in the series. Kate Bush's song literally pulled her out of Vecna's grasp, giving her the strength to run through his nightmare dimension and escape. It established that music has power in this universe. Emotional connections to songs can break Vecna's hold on his victims. Fans have been speculating about what songs might save characters in Season 5. Each person would need something personally meaningful, a song tied to happy memories or strong emotions. For Steve, people have suggested everything from Talking Heads to Journey. For Dustin, maybe something nerdy and nostalgic. For Will, fans have pointed to Should I Stay or Should I Go by The Clash, which was established as his and Jonathan's song back in Season 1. The interesting question is whether music will work the same way against Vecna in the finale. He knows about this weakness now. He might find ways to counter it, blocking the sounds or corrupting the memories associated with songs. The show might need to evolve the concept somehow. Maybe having characters create new musical connections or using live performance instead of recordings. Eddie's guitar solo was another musical moment that felt significant. He played Master of Puppets to draw the Demobats away from the house. It was heroic and tragic and set to absolutely incredible music. Some fans think music will be part of his resurrection if the Kaz theory is true. Maybe someone plays that song again, and it reaches him wherever he is, pulling him back toward consciousness. There's also the broader soundtrack, which the Duffer Brothers have always used deliberately. The show revived interest in 80s music for an entire generation. Kids who weren't born when these songs came out now have deep emotional connections to them because of Stranger Things. That cultural impact might find its way into the finale somehow, maybe through a montage set to classic tracks or a final needle drop that hits just right. But here's where things get really mind-bending. Time travel is one of those plot devices that can either be brilliant or completely ruin a story. There's no in-between. And based on the clues fans have been piecing together, Season 5 might be going there. The theory starts with something we've already talked about. The Upside Down is frozen on November 6th, 1983. That's not just weird. That's a massive hint that time works differently in that dimension. And if time can be frozen, maybe it can also be reversed. During Season 4, there's a scene where young Henry Creel demonstrates his powers to his mother. He makes a clock on the mantelpiece start ticking backwards. It's a small moment, easily missed, but fans have latched onto it. Henry didn't just move the clock hands, he rewound them. That's not telekinesis, that's something else entirely. And it raises the question of whether time manipulation has always been part of what these powered individuals can do. Then there's Nancy's vision. When Vecna traps her in his mind, he shows her a glimpse of the future. Hawkins destroyed, the Upside Down bleeding through, absolute devastation. But right at the end of that vision, there's a shot of a clock face with its hands spinning backwards. Fans have interpreted this as a hint about how the story might resolve. Maybe the only way to stop Vecna's apocalypse is to go back and prevent it from happening in the first place. The episode 1 title plays into this as well. The crawl could refer to Vecna's monsters crawling out of the gates, which is the obvious interpretation. But there's another possibility. In Season 4, Steve and Nancy have a conversation in the Upside Down, where Steve mentions that he crawled backwards as a baby. Nancy responds with something about alarm clocks always beeping in reverse. It's a throwaway moment, but Stranger Things doesn't really do throwaway moments. Everything means something. And I didn't catch this until someone pointed it out, but Back to the Future is literally playing at the Starcourt Mall Theatre in Season 3. The camera lingers on the marquee. That's one of the most famous time travel movies ever made, and the show deliberately put it in frame. It's probably not an accident. There are also these subtle Alice in Wonderland references scattered throughout the series. Henry's sister was named Alice. One of his first confirmed kills was a rabbit. In the original story, the white rabbit is obsessed with time, constantly worried about being late. These could be coincidences, or they could be the Duffers laying groundwork for a much bigger reveal. Eleven's voiceover at the start of Season 4 includes a line that hits differently now. She tells Mike that Joyce says time is funny. Emotions can make it speed up or slow down. We're all time travelers, if you think about it. At the time, it seemed like a poetic observation about missing someone. But what if it's foreshadowing something more literal? The theory goes like this. Season 5 will end with Vecna winning. Hawkins will fall. Characters we love will die. And in that moment of absolute despair, 11 will tap into something new. She'll use her powers, amplified by grief and love and desperation, to rewind time. To send herself or someone else back to November 6th, 1983, back to the day the gate first opened. Back to the moment when everything started going wrong. Some versions of this theory suggest 11 will close the gate from inside the Upside Down, sacrificing herself to prevent the invasion from ever happening. Others think Will is the key, that his connection to the frozen timeline makes him the only one who can navigate through time. Noah Schnapp has said the show began with Will and will end with Will. That statement fits perfectly with a time loop narrative. There's even a darker version floating around. In this one, Will travels back and finds his younger self hiding in the Upside Down, but instead of rescuing him, he convinces young Will to die, to not fight back, to let the Demogorgon take him so that Vecna never gets the foothold he needs. Both versions of Will would cease to exist, and the entire story would be erased. It's bleak, but it would certainly be memorable. Of course, time travel comes with problems. Fans have pointed out the grandfather paradox. If you go back and change the past, you eliminate the reason you went back in the first place. The Duffers would have to be really careful with how they handle this to avoid plot holes. I think time travel would be a pretty controversial way to end the series, but the clues are definitely there. Whether the show actually commits to it or just uses time as a thematic element remains to be seen. Something I want to explore a bit more is the physical geography of the finale. Where exactly is this final battle going to take place? The obvious answer is the Upside Down. Every season has involved venturing into the dark dimension at some point, and the finale should be no different. But the Upside Down at the end of season 4 isn't like it was before. The barriers are broken, it's bleeding into Hawkins through those massive cracks. The two worlds are already starting to merge. Some fans think the finale will take place in a hybrid space, somewhere that's neither fully our world nor fully the Upside Down, but something in between. The characters would be navigating terrain that shifts between dimensions unpredictably. One moment they're in normal Hawkins, the next they're surrounded by vines and spores. It would create incredible visual opportunities and constant tension. Others think the final confrontation happens inside Vecna's mind. We've seen 11 enter people's consciousness before. She did it with Billy in season 3 and attempted it with Max in season 4. If Vecna has been consuming his victims and storing them inside himself, then his mind might be a whole world unto itself. 11 might have to venture in there to rescue Max, defeat Vecna from within, or both. The Hawkins lab has been confirmed to appear in season 5 based on trailer footage. That's where everything started, where 11 was raised, where Henry committed his first massacre. It would be thematically appropriate for the finale to return there. The lab might contain secrets that help defeat Vecna, or it might just be where his physical body has been hiding. Castle Byers is another location that fans expect to see. Will's little fort in the woods has been a symbol of his childhood and innocence throughout the series. The Upside Down version was destroyed in season 2 when Will finally confronted the Mind Flayer, but if season 5 involves flashbacks or time travel, or just emotional callbacks, Castle Byers could appear again. Some theories suggest Will retreating there mentally when things get too overwhelming, using it as a psychic safe space. The Wheeler house has always been central to the show. It's where the boys played D&D, where 11 was hidden in season 1, where family dinners happened between supernatural crises. The Upside Down version of Nancy's room was already important in season 4. Fans expect the Wheeler house to be significant in the finale, possibly as a last stand location or the site of a major character death. Since we're talking about endings, let's discuss who fans think might not survive to see one. Okay, we need to talk about Steve Harrington, and I'm warning you now, this one might hurt a little. Steve has had one of the best character arcs in television history. I really do think that. When we first met him in season 1, he was the popular guy dating Nancy, and honestly, he was kind of a jerk. He made bad decisions, hung out with worse people, and generally acted like someone you weren't supposed to root for. But then the show did something brilliant. It stripped away his popularity, his relationship, and his cool exterior, and what was left underneath was actually a pretty decent person. By season 2, Steve had transformed into something the fandom affectionately calls Mom Steve. He became the protective older brother figure to Dustin and the rest of the kids. He fought monsters with a nail bat. He got beat up constantly, but kept showing up anyway. His evolution, from homecoming king to babysitter/monster slayer, is genuinely one of the most satisfying redemption arcs I've ever watched. Which is exactly why fans are terrified he's going to die. There's this horror movie rule that if a character starts talking about their future plans, they're basically signing their own death warrant. Steve did exactly that in season 4. He told Nancy about his dream of having 6 kids and driving around in a big RV. It was sweet and hopeful, and immediately made everyone watching think, oh no, he's doomed. The logic behind this theory goes something like this. Steve's arc has been about becoming selfless. He started as someone who only cared about himself, and gradually became someone who would do anything to protect the people he loves. The ultimate culmination of that journey would be sacrificing his life for someone else. It would prove once and for all that he's changed. It would be devastating, but it would also be narratively complete. After what happened to Eddie, this feels even more plausible. Eddie's death hit hard precisely because he was a new character we'd just learned to love. But Steve has been with us since the beginning. His death would hit differently. It would hit harder, and the Duffers know that. Joe Keery has described saying goodbye to the role as bittersweet. That's not exactly reassuring. Neither is the season 5 trailer, which shows Steve looking bloodied and exhausted in what appears to be a massive battle sequence. There's also a shot of Nancy crying in a bathroom, washing blood off her hands. Fans have connected these two moments and drawn some pretty grim conclusions. But there's counter-evidence too. Photos have leaked from what looks like a flash-forward sequence at the end of season 5. In these images, Steve appears to be wearing very 1990s clothing, suggesting the finale might jump ahead a few years. If that's actually him and not a dream sequence or something, then he makes it out alive. Dustin also appears in these photos with Eddie tribute tattoos on his arm, which is both heartwarming and heartbreaking. I'm not going to lie, I really don't want Steve to die. His arc would work perfectly well if he survives. Not every character transformation needs to end in sacrifice. Sometimes the more powerful statement is that someone gets to live with the changes they've made. Steve getting a happy ending, maybe even reconciling with Nancy, would be just as meaningful as a heroic death. Maybe more so, but I also know this is the final season. The Duffers don't have to worry about losing viewers for future installments. They can kill whoever they want now, and Steve's popularity makes him a prime target for maximum emotional impact. Whether he survives or not, Steve Harrington's journey has been worth watching. From jerk to hero to everyone's favourite mum friend, he's earned every bit of love the fandom gives him. He's not the only one fans are worried about losing, though. The Duffer brothers have been pretty upfront about what's coming. In an interview with The Times, Matt Duffer said that Season 5 contains the most violent death they've ever done. He clarified that the season isn't necessarily more violent overall than Season 4, but there's one specific death that's going to be brutal. Ross added that they've always tried to raise the stakes as the characters and audience grow up together, then jokes that hopefully parents won't get too mad at them. So someone is definitely dying. The question is who? Jonathan Byers has emerged as a dark horse candidate that a lot of fans are placing their bets on. He's been somewhat sidelined in recent seasons, stuck in California, while the main action happened in Hawkins. His relationship with Nancy seems to be on shaky ground, especially with Steve clearly still having feelings for her. Some fans think Jonathan's death could serve multiple purposes. It would devastate Will, potentially pushing him toward whatever role he's meant to play in the finale. It would also clear the way for Nancy to end up with Steve, giving audiences the relationship they've been rooting for since Season 2. One Reddit theory puts it pretty bluntly. Will is a red herring. Jonathan's the real death. The idea is that Vecna might kill Jonathan specifically to break Will emotionally, which could make him more vulnerable to manipulation. Ted Wheeler is another name that keeps coming up, which is honestly kind of funny because Ted has done absolutely nothing for 4 seasons. He's the oblivious dad who sits in his chair, eats chicken, and misses every supernatural crisis happening around him. But season 5 reportedly expands Karen Wheeler's role significantly, and that's got fans worried. Expanded screen time for a parent character often means something terrible is about to happen to their family. Some people think Ted finally steps up to protect his kids and pays the ultimate price. Others think his death would be the emotional push that forces Karen, Nancy, and Mike into darker territory. Murray Bauman is another popular prediction, though fans seem to want his death to be spectacular rather than tragic. One comment I saw suggested Murray would lock himself in a room full of demodogs and demobats and just set the whole thing on fire, going out like a total legend. Honestly, that tracks for his character. Holly Wheeler has been recast for season 5, which usually means a character is getting more screen time. She was a toddler in season 1 and basically a background prop for most of the series. But promotional materials show her looking scared alongside her mother, suggesting she might witness something traumatic. Whether that's a death or something else entirely, fans are bracing for the worst. Hopper is another name that comes up frequently. He's already had one fake-out death at the end of season 3, so killing him for real would carry extra weight. His whole arc has been about protecting Eleven and finding purpose after losing his daughter Sarah. A sacrifice to save Elle would be thematically appropriate, even if it would absolutely destroy everyone watching. What's wild is that even the cast members think someone major needs to go. Millie Bobby Brown, Maya Hawke, and Garton Matarazzo have all said in interviews that the show should kill off one of the kids to raise the stakes. The fact that the actors themselves are advocating for casualties tells you something about the tone they're expecting. The Duffer Brothers have said any deaths will feel earned, meaning they won't kill characters just for shock value. If someone goes down, it'll actually matter to the story. That's reassuring in some ways, and terrifying in others. It means whoever dies will probably be someone we care deeply about. Of course, there's also the optimistic counter-theory. Some fans believe everyone survives. They point to the finale releasing on New Year's Eve as potentially symbolic. Like the show wants to send audiences into the new year on a hopeful note rather than devastated. One comment I saw just said, "Everybody lives, Vecna dies, and honestly, I'd take that ending." But realistically, after 9 years of building up to this final confrontation, I don't think everyone's making it out. The Duffers have earned the right to break our hearts, and it seems like they're planning to use it. I want to dig a little deeper into the Wheeler family specifically, because they've been getting a lot of attention in fan theories. Karen Wheeler has been a background character for most of the series. She's the mum who doesn't quite know what's happening, who almost had an affair with Billy in season 3, who occasionally shows concern for her kids, but never gets fully involved in the supernatural stuff. Season 5 apparently changes that. Reports suggest Karen has a significantly expanded role this time. Promotional materials show her looking scared alongside Holly. The actress Cara Buono has been doing more press than usual. All of this points to the Wheeler parents finally getting pulled into the chaos they've been oblivious to for 4 seasons. Some fans think Karen discovering the truth about everything will be a major emotional beat. Imagine her learning that her children have been fighting monsters for years, while she had no idea. The guilt, the fear, the anger at being kept in the dark. It could be powerful stuff if handled well. Ted Wheeler is the bigger question mark. He's been comic relief for the entire series, the dad who's always in his chair, always missing the obvious, always useless in a crisis. The joke has run its course, honestly. Some fans want Ted to have a heroic moment, to finally step up when his family needs him. Others think his obliviousness will get him killed, serving as a tragic wake-up call for the characters who've been protecting him. Holly is the wild card. She's been recast with an older actress, suggesting she'll have actual scenes and dialogue for the first time. Some theories based on promotional analysis suggest Holly might get taken into the Upside Down early in the season, creating a rescue mission that parallels Will's disappearance in Season 1. It would bring things full circle while raising the stakes for the Wheeler family, specifically. There's even a theory that Holly has latent powers like 11. The logic is that the experiments at Hawkins' lab might have affected more people than we realise. Holly was conceived and born in Hawkins, potentially exposed to residual psychic energy or government experimentation. It's a stretch, but Stranger Things has surprised us before. At the centre of all these theories, though, is one character whose fate matters most. 11 has been the heart of Stranger Things since the very first episode. She's the girl who escaped Hawkins' lab, the one who opened the gate, the one who's faced down every monster the Upside Down has thrown at her. And now, heading into the final season, fans have some pretty intense theories about how her story ends. The most straightforward prediction is that 11 will be the one to finally destroy Vecna. That makes sense. Their histories are intertwined in ways no other characters can match. She's the one who banished him to the Upside Down in the first place. She's the only person who's ever beaten him in a psychic confrontation. It would feel right for her to land the killing blow, but there's a cost to everything 11 does. Her powers take a physical toll. Every season, we've watched her push herself further and bleed more. The final battle against Vecna might require something beyond what she's ever done before. Some fans think she'll survive but lose her powers permanently. The effort of defeating him could burn out whatever makes her abilities work. She'd live, but as a normal girl for the first time in her life. There's something bittersweet about that. She'd finally get to be ordinary. Other theories are darker. One popular idea suggests 11 won't die exactly, but she'll get trapped in the Upside Down. This would mirror her disappearance at the end of Season 1, when everyone thought she was gone. She closed the gate from the inside and vanished. If the only way to seal the breach permanently is to close it from within, 11 might volunteer to stay behind. She'd save everyone, but lose them in the process. There's an even more heartbreaking version floating around that reminds me of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. In this theory, 11 defeats Vecna and seals the Upside Down, but to prevent future threats, she uses her powers to erase all memories of herself and the supernatural events from everyone in Hawkins. Her friends would forget her completely. They'd go on living normal lives, never knowing what they survived or who saved them. 11 would have to watch from the outside alone, but knowing the people she loves are finally safe. It's devastating to even think about. The Duffer Brothers have confirmed that Netflix executives cried when they heard the pitch for the finale. Matt Duffer mentioned it at an event, joking that the only other times he'd seen them cry were during budget meetings. That's not exactly comforting. Whatever they've planned, it's clearly designed to hit hard emotionally. Millie Bobby Brown has been careful about what she says, but she's hinted that the ending is satisfying while also being difficult. She's described the final season as a proper goodbye to the character she's played for nearly a decade. That phrasing could mean anything, but it suggests closure rather than continuation. What strikes me about 11's arc is how much it mirrors Henry's. They're both products of Hawkins' lab. They both have extraordinary powers. The difference is in how they chose to use them. Henry wanted to destroy humanity. 11 keeps saving it. Their final confrontation isn't just a battle. It's a philosophical argument about what power is for. I really hope she gets something resembling a happy ending, but I'm not entirely confident she will. The ending of Stranger Things is going to define how the entire series is remembered. No pressure or anything. Fans have been debating what kind of conclusion would be satisfying. The show has always balanced horror and heart, darkness and hope. The finale needs to honour both aspects. Going too dark would betray the friendships and love that make the show special. Going too light would undermine 9 years of building up a genuinely threatening villain. The happy ending camp wants everyone to survive. They want Vecna defeated, the Upside Down sealed forever, and a flash forward showing the characters grown up and living normal lives. Maybe Mike and Eleven are married. Maybe Steve is a dad. Maybe Will is a successful artist who's finally happy. It's the fairy tale ending that would send audiences away smiling. The bittersweet ending camp thinks sacrifice is necessary. Someone major needs to die for the victory to feel earned. The survivors carry that loss with them forever, but they also carry the knowledge that their friend's death meant something. Life goes on, scarred but hopeful. This is probably closer to what the Duffers are planning based on their comments about making people cry. The tragic ending camp, which is smaller but vocal, thinks Stranger Things should go full horror. Vecna wins, Hawkins falls. The main characters either die or are forced to flee as the Upside Down consumes everything. It would be shocking and memorable, but it would also feel like a betrayal of everything the show has built. I really don't think they're going this route. There's also debate about whether the ending should be open or closed. Some fans want every question answered, every character's fate confirmed, no ambiguity whatsoever. Others prefer a bit of mystery, leaving room for interpretation and imagination. The Duffers have said they want the ending to feel complete, which suggests they're leaning toward closure over ambiguity. The spin-off situation complicates things slightly. Netflix has already announced a Stranger Things animated series set in 1985, plus the Duffers have talked about potential live-action spin-offs. These projects might influence how definitively the main series ends. If they're planning more stories in this universe, they might leave some doors open. But they've also emphasized that Season 5 is the end of the Hawkins story, specifically. So maybe the spin-offs go somewhere entirely different. Whatever happens, I trust the Duffers to deliver something meaningful. They've been planning this ending for years. They know these characters better than anyone, and they clearly care about giving fans a conclusion that honours the journey we've been on together. There's another powered character who's been absent for a while though, and fans think she might finally return. Remember Carly? She went by 8, another numbered kid from Hawkins' lab, just like 11. She showed up in Season 2 in an episode called The Lost Sister, and then basically vanished from the story entirely. That episode was controversial, to put it mildly. It took 11 away from Hawkins right when the action was heating up and dropped her into this completely different storyline in Chicago. Carly had escaped the lab years earlier and formed her own gang of misfits, seeking revenge on the people who experimented on them. She taught 11 how to channel anger to strengthen her powers and encouraged her to embrace a darker path. 11 ultimately rejected that approach and went back to her friends, and we haven't seen Carly since, but fans think she might be due for a comeback. The theory is straightforward. If 11 is going to face Vecna in a final showdown, she's going to need help. Carly has powers that could complement 11's perfectly. While Elle has telekinesis, Carly can create illusions. She can make people see things that aren't there, or hide things that are. In a battle against someone as powerful as Vecna, the ability to deceive and disorient could be crucial. Imagine Carly masking the group's approach while 11 prepares to strike, or creating false targets to confuse Vecna's defenses. Their combined abilities could give them an edge that 11 alone doesn't have. There's also Carly's unfinished business with the people responsible for what happened at the lab. Dr. Owens is still around. Papa may finally be dead, but the system that created these children and ruined their lives never fully faced consequences. Carly wanted revenge. Season 5 could finally give her the chance to get it, just redirected toward the ultimate target. A darker counter-theory suggests Vecna has already found Carly. If he's been hunting down the other lab kids over the years, she might have been on his list. Some fans speculate that Vecna killed her and absorbed her illusion powers, which would explain certain things he's been able to do. It would also mean 11 truly is the last one left. I think bringing Carly back would be a nice way to close that loop. The Lost Sister is widely considered one of the weakest episodes in the series, but the character herself had potential that was never fully explored. Giving her a meaningful role in the finale would redeem that storyline and show that the writers had a longer plan all along. Even if she only appears briefly, it would feel like proper closure. Whether she returns as an ally or is revealed to be another of Vecna's victims, Carly's story deserves some kind of resolution. There are a few more characters I want to mention who might have unexpected roles in the finale. Argyle, Jonathan's stoner friend from California, was introduced in Season 4 as comic relief. He drove the van, made pizza, and generally provided levity during tense moments. Some fans think he'll have a surprisingly important role in Season 5. Maybe his surfer boy pizza connections come in handy somehow. Maybe he's the one who says something profound at exactly the right moment. Stranger Things has a history of giving seemingly minor characters crucial moments. Murray Bauman has been a conspiracy theorist and reluctant hero since Season 2. He speaks Russian, knows martial arts apparently, and has helped the group multiple times. His paranoid worldview has actually been vindicated by everything that's happened. Fans expect him to be useful in the finale, possibly translating something important or providing tactical knowledge. Some people want him to have a badass death scene, going out fighting. Vicky, Robin's crush, hasn't had much screen time yet, but Season 5 might change that. If Robin survives the finale, fans want her to get a happy ending with Vicky. A small moment showing them together in an epilogue would mean a lot to LGBTQ viewers who've invested in Robin's journey. Susie, Dustin's girlfriend from Utah, appeared briefly in Season 3 and has been referenced since. Some fans think she'll show up in Season 5, maybe using her tech skills to help from afar. The never-ending story duet is still one of the show's most delightful moments, and a callback to that relationship would be welcome. There's also the question of whether any new characters will be introduced. Season 5 is the finale, so you'd think the focus would be on existing cast members. But the show has always introduced at least one significant new character each season. Whether that's a government agent, a Hawkins resident we haven't met, or something else entirely remains to be seen. Now for a theory that the Duffer Brothers have already addressed directly. This is one of those theories that would have been either brilliant or absolutely infuriating. There's no middle ground, and thankfully, we know for certain it's not happening. The theory goes like this: everything we've watched over 4 seasons of Stranger Things isn't actually real. The monsters, the Upside Down, Vecna, all of it. It's just an elaborate Dungeons and Dragons campaign being played by Mike, Will, Dustin, and Lucas. The final episode would pull back to reveal the boys sitting around a table, rolling dice, narrating this epic adventure they've been imagining together. None of it ever happened. It was all in their heads. When you think about it, the evidence isn't completely ridiculous. The very first scene of the entire series is the boys playing D&D. They face a Demogorgon in that opening game, and then a real Demogorgon shows up to take Will. Every major monster since then has been named after D&D creatures. The Demogorgon, the Mind Flayer, Vecna. The kids literally use the game as their framework for understanding what's happening to their town. Fun fact, Jamie Campbell Bower, who plays Vecna, actually supported this theory in interviews. He seemed to find it genuinely interesting rather than dismissing it outright. When even the main villain is entertaining the idea, it makes you wonder if the writers planted those seeds intentionally. But here's the thing, this ending would have been devastating for fans, not in a good way. The "it was all a dream" trope is one of the most hated conclusions in storytelling. It retroactively makes everything feel meaningless. All the deaths, all the sacrifices, all the emotional moments we invested in would suddenly become imaginary. Bob didn't really die. Eddie's sacrifice wasn't real. Max's trauma was just something a kid made up at a sleepover. The Duffer Brothers were asked about this theory directly at the premiere of Stranger Things, The First Shadow. According to reports, they erupted into laughter before Matt Duffer jokingly said, "That is correct, that is the ending," followed immediately by "no." Ross clarified by saying that would be the equivalent of "that's all a dream," and assured everyone that is not how we're going to end the show. He also mentioned they've known how the series ends for a while and feel comfortable with it, so we can officially put that one to rest. That said, I don't think D&D is going away as a narrative element. The game has been too important to the show's DNA to ignore in the finale. Some fans theorize that whoever originally created the Upside Down might have been inspired by D&D somehow, which would explain why the Dimension's creatures match the game so closely. Others think the kids will literally use D&D strategy to plan their final assault on Vecna, treating the real battle like a campaign they need to win. There's something poetic about that possibility. The game that brought them together as friends could be the thing that helps them save the world. It wouldn't make everything fictional. It would just mean the fictional game taught them how to survive reality. I'm honestly relieved the Duffers shot down the All a Dream version. Stranger Things has earned a real ending with real consequences. Whatever happens in Season 5, at least we know it counts. Before we wrap up, I want to run through some of the wilder ideas floating around online. These range from surprisingly plausible to completely unhinged, but that's part of what makes fan theories so fun. One theory suggests the Will we've been watching since Season 1 isn't actually Will at all. According to this idea, the real Will Byers never made it out of the Upside Down. What came back was a clone or some kind of entity created by Vecna, designed to infiltrate Hawkins and gather information. It would explain why Vecna seems so obsessed with him and why Will has always felt slightly disconnected from his friends since returning. I don't really buy this one personally, but it's certainly creative. Then there's the psychiatric hospital theory, which is even darker. This version proposes that all the main characters are actually patients in a mental institution. Joyce's grief over losing Will drove her to create this elaborate fantasy world. Hopper and Murray are fellow patients with their own delusions. The Upside Down represents their shared trauma manifesting as supernatural horror. Vecna is a metaphor for mental illness itself. It's bleak, and I think fans would riot if it turned out to be true, but someone clearly put a lot of thought into it. On the lighter side, some fans are convinced that Erica Sinclair will get a major hero moment against Vecna. She's Lucas's younger sister, with a razor-sharp tongue and zero fear. The theory suggests she'll face Vecna directly and somehow defeat him with pure attitude and maybe some well-timed sass. Honestly, I'd watch that. There's also speculation that the barrier between worlds will collapse entirely, leaving Hawkins permanently fused with the Upside Down. Instead of closing the gates, the finale would be about learning to survive in a world where both dimensions exist simultaneously. It would be a pretty bold choice for an ending. One theory that genuinely worries me involves Dustin and Steve dying together. Their friendship has been one of the best parts of the show, and some fans think their fates are linked. If Steve goes down protecting Dustin, Dustin might not survive either. A Season 3 moment where they discuss their bond has been flagged as possible foreshadowing. That would be absolutely gutting. Since we've covered the major theories, I think it's worth talking about what we actually know for certain heading into the finale. The Duffer Brothers have been pretty generous with information, and some of it directly impacts which theories are more or less likely. First, the timeline. Season 5 takes place in the fall of 1987, which means there's been an 18-month gap since the events of Season 4. That's the longest time jump between seasons the show has ever done. The kids who started as middle schoolers are now proper teenagers. Mike, Will, Dustin, Lucas and Max would all be around 16 or 17. Steve and the older group are pushing into their early 20s. Even Holly Wheeler, who was basically a toddler in Season 1, is now around 8 years old and apparently has a much bigger role this season. The release schedule is interesting too. Netflix is splitting the final season into 3 parts. The first 4 episodes drop on November 26th. The next 3 come out on Christmas Day, and the series finale airs on New Year's Eve. That's a pretty deliberate choice. They're spacing it out to maximise the cultural moment, giving people time to process and theorise between volumes. It also means we'll be ringing in 2026 either celebrating or mourning, depending on how things go. The Duffer Brothers have confirmed that Season 5 really is the end of the Hawkins story. Whatever happens, these characters are getting closure. There won't be a surprise Season 6 or a continuation with this cast. They've said it will feel like a proper finale, not an open-ended conclusion designed for potential sequels. That gives them permission to do things they might not otherwise risk, like killing major characters or fundamentally changing the world. What's also been confirmed is that Will's arc is central to everything. The brothers have specifically said the season brings things full circle back to Season 1, and Noah Schnapp has emphasised repeatedly that the story began with Will and ends with Will. Combined with the Season 5 opening scene showing Vecna addressing young Will directly, it's clear his connection to the Upside Down is finally getting the spotlight. Now, something I haven't really touched on yet is the relationship dynamics, which fans have been theorising about almost as much as the supernatural stuff. The Mike, 11, and Will situation has been building for a while now. Will's feelings for Mike became increasingly obvious in Season 4, and the show hasn't shied away from it. There's a whole conversation in the van where Will gives Mike a painting and talks about how Elle needs him, but it's pretty clear he's also talking about himself. The question is whether Season 5 will address this directly or leave it as subtext. Some fans think Will's romantic arc will be resolved. They point to the Duffers' writing decisions as intentional setup. You don't make a character clearly in love with his best friend unless you plan to explore it. Others think Will's feelings will remain unrequited, which would be devastating but might fit the bittersweet tone the finale seems to be going for. Noah Schnapp has said Will's sexuality will be a major plot point, so it's definitely not going to be ignored. Mike and Eleven's relationship has been rocky. They spent most of Season 4 struggling to communicate, and Mike's inability to say he loves her became a whole thing. He did eventually say it, but under pretty extreme circumstances. Whether their relationship survives the finale or not is genuinely uncertain. Some fans think they're endgame, others think the show has been quietly setting up reasons for them to grow apart. And then there's the Nancy, Steve, and Jonathan triangle, which has been simmering since Season 1. Jonathan and Nancy have been together for years now, but Steve clearly still has feelings for her. His speech about wanting 6 kids felt like it was directed at Nancy specifically. The trailer shows Nancy and Steve having intense moments together, and Jonathan seems more distant than ever. Something's going to give there, one way or another. Let's also talk about what fans think might happen to Hawkins itself. One theory that's gained traction suggests the final battle won't just be about defeating Vecna, it'll be about preventing the Upside Down from permanently merging with our world. At the end of Season 4, massive cracks opened across Hawkins. The barrier between dimensions was shattered. Spores started falling from the sky like snow. This wasn't a gate that could be closed. This was something bigger. Some fans believe the finale will involve the 2 worlds colliding completely. Hawkins would become a permanent hybrid zone where the rules of both dimensions apply. Monsters would roam the streets. The sky would be perpetually dark and filled with ash. It would essentially be an apocalypse localized to one small Indiana town. In this version of events, victory wouldn't mean returning things to normal. It would mean learning to survive in a fundamentally changed world. The characters would have to accept that Hawkins can never go back to what it was. They'd either have to evacuate everyone or find a way to coexist with the Upside Down's influence. There's actually precedent for this in how the show has handled consequences. Hawkins has been through multiple disasters now. The mall burned down, the lab was exposed, people have died in very public, very unexplainable ways. The town's population has been declining as people flee. At some point, the supernatural isn't a secret anymore. It's just reality. The government is also clearly involved in Season 5. The military's hunting Eleven again, trying to either capture or eliminate her. Hawkins is apparently under some kind of quarantine or lockdown. Regular people are finally confronting the fact that something deeply wrong has been happening in their town for years. This suggests the finale won't just be the kids versus Vecna. It'll be a much larger conflict involving multiple factions with different agendas. What I find fascinating is how the show has evolved from a small-scale mystery about a missing boy into this massive, apocalyptic showdown. The scope has grown every season, but it's always stayed grounded in these characters and their relationships. That's what makes the theories so compelling. We're not just speculating about plot mechanics. We're worried about people we've watched grow up over 9 years. The Duffers have said they want the finale to be satisfying. They've talked about paying off storylines that have been building since the beginning. They've mentioned wanting to honour every character's journey while also delivering something surprising. That's a lot of pressure, but based on their track record, I think they can pull it off. Whatever happens in Season 5, it's going to be the end of an era. Stranger Things defined a generation of television. It launched careers, revived Kate Bush, and made everyone terrified of flickering lights. The finale has to live up to all of that, while also telling a coherent, emotionally resonant story. I genuinely can't wait to see how it all ends. And that, my dear friends, is where we'll end tonight's exploration of Stranger Things theories. We've covered a lot of ground here: the frozen timeline mystery and what it means for the finale, Will's potential hidden powers, and his central role in ending the story, Eddie Munson and the elaborate Cass vampire theory that fans desperately want to be true, Max's imprisonment in Vecna's mind and how she might escape or even gain powers of her own, the time travel speculation that could reset everything if the Duffers are brave enough to go there. We talked about Steve's possible sacrifice and why fans are terrified of losing him. We went through the death predictions and who might not survive the most brutal season yet. We explored Eleven's fate and the various ways her story could end. We discussed Carly's potential return and whether the Lost Sister storyline gets redeemed. And we covered the debunked D&D campaign theory, along with a bunch of other wild ideas floating around the internet. The truth is, none of us really know what's coming. The Duffer Brothers have been planning this ending for years, and they've managed to keep most of it secret. All we can do is speculate based on clues, analyse trailer footage frame by frame, and emotionally prepare ourselves for whatever happens. What I do know is that Stranger Things has meant a lot to a lot of people. It's a show about friendship and found family and fighting against impossible odds. It's about kids who refuse to give up even when the adults have failed them. It's about love being stronger than fear, even when fear takes the form of a psychic monster from another dimension. However Season 5 ends, that's what I'll remember. Not just the theories that were right or wrong, but the feeling of watching these characters grow up over 9 years. The excitement before each new season, the discussions with friends about what might happen next, the way running up that hill still makes me think of Max running through that red nightmare. In a future video, I'm definitely going to cover reactions to what actually happens once the season drops. Character breakdowns, theory confirmations, analysis of the finale, all that good stuff. There's going to be so much to talk about, and I'm planning to do deep dives on specific aspects depending on how everything shakes out. For now though, we wait, we theorise, we re-watch old episodes looking for clues we might have missed, and we brace ourselves for what the Duffer Brothers have in store. But until next time, stay safe and sweet dreams.